What up, my friends? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I have what will hopefully be a very helpful strategy to prep ahead of Thanksgiving. It's gonna be here before we know it. I swear to you, on Halloween day, I looked at my phone and it said that it was October 31st. And I said, how is that quite possible? Because July 4th was 2 days ago. I don't understand what's happening with the time continuum, but I'm not comfortable with it. It feels like it should be illegal. So we, as a collective community, we're not gonna allow Thanksgiving to sneak up on us. And we're gonna do some help for our future Thanksgiving stressed out self. We're gonna get 5 creative, delicious recipes that will wow your guests in the freezer now. So then that way on Thanksgiving Day, we can focus on the main dishes and get a little bit of time back to be able to enjoy it with our friends and family. What I decided to do was do 5 recipes in different categories. That way we have a large spread of items that you could pick a couple if you wanted to, or do all 5, and you'll have some great options for yourself on Thanksgiving Day. The first one I knew I wanted to do was a breakfast recipe. That way on Thanksgiving and even the day after, you don't even have to think about what you're gonna be eating for breakfast. And I feel like it's a creative recipe that you don't see a lot. Next up, I did a dinner roll recipe. Specifically, I did Amish dinner rolls because those are my personal favorite. I'm even sharing a copycat recipe for the Texas Roadhouse honey butter. I've been making it for years, and I swear to you, it's what everybody talks about after they leave my house for any occasion, because I pretty much do crescent rolls with honey butter every single time I have Friendsgiving, Thanksgiving, Friendsmas, or Christmas at my house, or even Easter. I always make honey butter and people don't stop talking about it. So I'll share that in this video. Next up, we have 2 options for sides. One of them is a very indulgent and delicious twice baked potato with a French onion twist. And then I made a nutritious broccoli casserole on the side. Me personally, I'm not a green bean casserole person, and I know that's one of the most popular recipes for Thanksgiving, and I'm sure there's somebody out there way more suited to make a delicious green bean casserole than me. So I decided to go with broccoli because broccoli is my personal favorite side. And then last but not least, if you've been on my channel for a little while, you might know that I don't love pumpkin things. So kind of like the green bean casserole, I know that you can go out to people who genuinely enjoy pumpkin and will be able to give you stellar recipes. So I decided to turn to something I love, which is anything maple flavored. And I made maple pecan blondies. And then what I did for all 5 of these recipes is I got them all in the freezer for a couple of weeks. That way they could be fully frozen. And then I cooked them just like you would have to on Thanksgiving Day. And John and I are sharing our honest review in a taste test for all 5 of the items so we can tell you how the freezing process worked. Did it affect the quality of the item in any way, shape, or form? So without further ado, let's dive into the video. Okay, so we are starting this video out with the breakfast strata first, but the best part of this process is you can do whatever recipe your heart calls out to you whenever you want. I did these meals over 3 days. So I did 2 recipes per day for the first couple of days and then 1 on the last day. But if you wanted to just get them all done at one time, you could set aside a few hours to get them done and in the freezer. All of the recipes will be included in the description box. For this one, I just chopped up a day-old half of a sourdough loaf that I had got at Sam's Club. It was a little over 2 pounds as a whole loaf. I spread out the little cubes all over a greased 9x13 pan. Then I dropped in the other ingredients in the mixing bowl. We had minced garlic, diced onions, sun-dried tomatoes. I had chopped up some slices of Canadian bacon. We also had eggs, milk, salt, pepper, and I used the Trader Joe's Aglio Olio seasoning, which is like a zesty Italian blend. I sprinkled some cheddar cheese throughout the bread cubes, and then once I mixed all the other ingredients up, I poured that over the bread and cheese mixture. I then took a fork and pushed the bread down to make sure it was covered as much as possible with that egg mixture. I sprinkled more shredded cheese on top and then sprinkled with some everything but the bagel seasoning. Covered it up with foil and refrigerated it for about 3 hours so the bread could soak it all up. Once I was ready to bake it, I preheated the oven to 350 degrees and baked the strata with the foil on for about 30 minutes. Then I took the foil off and baked it for another 15 to 20 minutes until it had puffed up and gotten a little bit golden. I covered this very tightly with foil and got it in the freezer. I didn't have any plastic wrap on hand, but if you have plastic wrap on hand, that's going to keep it even more protected. Once I was ready to cook it, I took it directly from the freezer and baked it in a preheated oven of 350 degrees for about 30 minutes with the foil on. Then I took the foil off and gave it another 20 or so. Even if you aren't looking for Thanksgiving breakfast ideas, this would be a great way to meal prep for quick weekday breakfast. You could even cut this up up into individual portions once it's done and wrap them up individually in the freezer, and then air fry or microwave them in the morning for a quick grab and go breakfast. All right, friends, starting this off strong with a delicious looking breakfast Strata is what it's called. It's got sun-dried tomatoes in it, Canadian bacon, scrambled eggs. Ooh. I can't remember what else. You know, because you just watched the clip. Sourdough bread. Ooh. That's the other one. And it's topped off with everything but the bagel seasoning, which is just all the breakfast vibes. I'm excited to try this one because I don't think I've ever had a breakfast Strata, and it was like super easy to put together.
What makes it a Strata?
I have no idea. I'm guessing the fact that it's like bread, because it's like cubed bread.
Oh.
I've never seen that in a different recipe. Normally it's like something goes down, like pastry or something goes down on the bottom.
Oh, okay.
And then you fill it. I've never seen something like this. It's almost like a savory French toast casserole. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's breakfast for the next week.
That is really good. That is so good.
That is really good.
It reminds me of something and I can't figure out what it is.
It's almost like your French toast casserole.
No, it reminds me of, it's gonna bug me. Some type of like a quiche or something I've had somewhere.
Oh.
Like at a restaurant. It's something about the sun-dried tomatoes. They do something to that recipe.
Okay.
That's a stunner.
Stunner.
What I like about it too is that although it's like a bread-based recipe, I feel like it has like a light flavor profile to it. So like on Thanksgiving Day, you're gonna be eating a lot. You're not gonna wanna like overindulge in breakfast. So I know a lot of people do like cinnamon roll casseroles and stuff like that for Thanksgiving Day breakfast. For me, that's always just been too heavy. So something like this I think is perfect. Yeah. And I like that it has the scrambled eggs and the Canadian bacon, so you're getting a lot of protein. And it even has cheese. Cheese has protein in it, so I feel like it's gonna fill you up. So I'm giving that a 9.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's funny because we don't like crispy edges of stuff, but I got like a crispy piece of sourdough bread with some cheese on it, and that was really good.
I feel like crispy bread is different than like burnt, like cheese.
Right. No, but burnt cheese sometimes is good.
Okay. Well,
not burnt noodles though.
That's what it is.
Yeah, we don't like burnt noodles in lasagna. What is your rating, sir? Corporate needs to know.
I'm going with an 8.
An 8?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was good.
Yeah. I like the everything but the bagel seasoning on the top too, because it's just barely there. You can't taste it too much, but it definitely gives it like a little bit something different. Overall though, I think this would be an excellent choice for your Thanksgiving breakfast. This ended up making a huge casserole dish too. So you would be able to have it for Thanksgiving morning breakfast and then the morning after, because I bet the morning after you're not gonna wanna cook, especially if you have some shopping that you wanna get done.
That is very true.
So it's like 2 days in a row, you're not gonna have to think about breakfast with this one.
Why, do people actually still do Black Friday shopping?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Most of it I think is more like cyber deals at this point, but there are people that still do the traditional Black Friday.
Like, do people camp out in front
I think so, yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah. Anyways, so we're gonna get this feedback over to corporate. And if you happen to be new here, hi, how are you? Welcome. How is the family? I am so grateful that you clicked on this thumbnail and gave me a chance. On this channel, I do a lot of videos like this where I try to share some creative recipes that'll help you with meal planning. I also share haul videos, so we're at Costco, Sam's Club, BJ's, and Trader Joe's quite a bit. If you end up enjoying the vibe while you're here, I would love it if you'd consider subscribing. In the coming weeks, I'm gonna be sharing a couple more Thanksgiving recipes, so you'll definitely wanna turn on the notifications if Thanksgiving is something that stresses you out. I wanna take a moment too and just say that this video was actually inspired by one of you guys. So when you leave me the comments, it helps me out so much, because she had mentioned how she has a large family that she entertains for the holidays, and she was looking for some guidance on how she could make it a little bit easier on herself. And to me, I have just discovered such a love for freezer cooking this year. And I think getting these recipes in the freezer now ahead of Thanksgiving is just gonna take such a load off your plate on Thanksgiving Day. So I hope you're watching, and I wanna thank you so much for inspiring this video. I will leave the comment up on the screen. And if you guys ever have something you want me to try to cover that will help you out in any way, shape, or form, or bring you joy, that is why I'm here. Next up, we made some Amish dinner rolls. Full breakdown on the exact measurements will be listed down below. This one does require a little pre-planning because you do need to allow enough time for the dough to rise, but they are so worth it. I started by getting the warm milk, sugar, and yeast together for a few minutes to allow it to become foamy. Then in my stand mixer, I combined all of the other ingredients, adding the flour a little at a time until it became a soft dough. I then turned the dough out onto a floured surface and kneaded it for about 5 minutes until it became a little smoother and kind of elasticy. I placed the dough back into my stand mixer bowl, which I had lightly greased, and then I covered it with a towel and let it rise for about 2 hours until it was about double in size. I punched down the dough and then divided it into 12 equal portions that I shaped into balls and placed into a greased 9x13 baking dish, and I allowed them to rise a second time, so I'd say another couple hours. I stuck them directly in the freezer in the tray. If you end up needing real estate in the freezer, once they've frozen for about 5 to 6 hours in that tray, you could always break them up and transfer them to a Ziploc bag, but for me, I just liked having it in the dish that I was going to bake it in. Once I was ready to bake, I removed the rolls from the freezer, set them on my counter in that baking dish with a warm towel over it for a few hours before baking. Then I brushed the tops of the rolls with some melted butter, baked them for 20 minutes in an oven that I had preheated to 350 degrees until they were golden brown. Then I brushed them with some more melted butter, sprinkled with a little pink Himalayan salt, which is my favorite, but you could just use kosher or sea salt if you have it, and served it with some honey butter. For honey butter, it could not be more simple to do this Texas Roadhouse favorite. I just combined softened butter, powdered sugar, honey, and cinnamon. I use a really good butter for this. It's a grass-fed one from Costco that I save for recipes like this where the butter is the star. I couldn't find the attachments for my regular hand mixer and ended up making an absolute mess of my kitchen trying to use the other one. I swear not a week goes by in this kitchen where there is not some type of chaos. The good news is it did not affect the deliciousness of this honey butter in any way, and just like with everything else, the recipe for that with exact measurements will be down below. Friends, good day. If you hear our children in the background, it's because they do in fact live here. We're gonna try our best to do a little taste test on these Amish dinner rolls.
Well, they're Amish.
Amish dinner rolls with a side of honey butter. We're gonna try the roll first by itself because we already know.
Oh, that looks good.
Yeah, can we just take a moment to appreciate? It's like a dinner roll meets a biscuit. That's what it looks like. I don't know what it tastes like, but, well, I made these before, so I know what they taste like. It's just been years. You know, I'm dipping in that honey butter. He did a close-up shot. That is literally like a biscuit and a dinner roll. Fell in love.
Those are better than any of the
K-I-S-S-I-N-G.
Pillsbury.
Like the biscuits in a jar type thing. Yeah. Delicious. I love a little sprinkle of salt on top. Honey butter is a must. Don't even play around. Just don't play around. I'm giving the biscuits, not their biscuits. I'm giving the Amish dinner rolls a 9.5.
Second.
Wow.
Second that.
Honey butter is a 10. It's 10. A solid 10. So together it's like a 9.75.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else really to say? I think that freezing it, nothing was impacted whatsoever. Sure, I've made them in the past just straight fresh, and they were delicious that way. I don't think there's any difference in freezing it ahead of time.
I would never know these were frozen.
I would never know either. So I think this is definitely a great one that if you want to, maybe you could double, triple the batch depending how many people are coming over. The only thing that I had to do right before getting them in the oven was to melt a little bit of butter, or if you wanted, you could do like an egg wash, but I went with the butter route. So that is that. We're gonna get this feedback to corporate, and you're diving into the next recipe. Now we are moving into a couple side options, starting with a twist on twice baked potatoes. This one features caramelized onions and Gruyere cheese, giving it a French onion twist. I started by preheating the oven to 400 degrees. I washed and scrubbed 4 large russet potatoes, then stabbed them with a knife. I got them on a baking sheet and cooked them for just shy of an hour. I honestly should have gone the full hour, or maybe even an hour and 10 minutes, because they weren't as tender as they'd like, because they were big beast of potatoes, but I did end up making it work. But don't be like me. Be sure that you make sure they're fully tender before taking them out. While the potatoes were baking, I caramelized my onions on a skillet and then set them to the side. I hadn't given myself enough time for the potatoes to cool also. I was just a hot mess. So again, don't be like me, but I just used some tongs to get myself through it. I cut each potato in half and scooped out the insides. I put that in the skillet with the onions, along with cheese, cream cheese, and things like that to make a creamy, almost like mashed potato mixture. I spooned that mixture back into the potato shells and sprinkled additional Gruyere cheese on the top of each filled potato. I got this tray directly in the freezer, but again, if you need real estate, you could let them get solid in the freezer for a few hours and then transfer them to a freezer-safe bag. Once you're ready to eat, you just preheat the oven to 350 degrees. If you did use a freezer bag, you're going to place those onto a baking sheet and cover them with foil. Or if you kept them stored in the baking dish like I did, just pop them right in the oven, let them bake for 25 to 30 minutes covered with that foil, and then uncover the foil and let it heat for another 20 minutes or so until it's heated through and the cheese is melted and bubbly. All right, friends, we have the next recipe, which, spoiler alert, John and I have already tried this. We tried it fresh, but this actually helps out in this little experiment we're doing because we got to try it fresh. And then now we get to try it after it's been frozen for a couple of weeks. We thought, well, we didn't even thought. It just went straight into the oven, straight into the tanning bed, if you will. And we can report back if there's any differences, you know? The recipe called for 4 baked potatoes, but I didn't think about the fact that you're splitting those baked potatoes, so it really makes 8 servings. And I didn't have enough room in the freezer to freeze 2 pans of baked potatoes. So,
what are we gonna do?
For us, so these are twice baked potatoes. If you don't want a freezer meal recipe, if you just want a twice baked potato recipe, you can easily just follow this as is. I mean, honestly, any of them you can. Like I said, we've already tried these and loved them, but now we just want to taste it to see if there's any difference or texture or anything like that. So what are your thoughts, Mr. Koska?
It's the same.
It's the exact same.
It's the same.
If anything, I think it's a little bit better because honestly, the first round, you guys are going to see me on the struggle spaceship.
Struggle spaceship?
Yeah, I've upgraded it.
Wow, we went from a bus to a spaceship.
What happened was, the reason why I'm on the struggle spaceship, these past couple weeks, as parents, we've been through some things. And so I said what it felt like on Instagram. I said this. I said, I feel like I've been put in a dumpster. Somebody poured week-old clam chowder on top of me, closed the lid, accidentally wheeled me onto a spaceship, and then sent me into outer space, but left all of my responsibilities and stress inside the spaceship. And then I was just orbiting, dealing with the craziness. The things I come up with, I don't know, okay? It's a scary place inside my brain.
First of all, how did you end up in a dumpster? And second of all...
I was pushed into the dumpster probably by one of your children. You know what I mean? That's probably what happened. And then before closing the lid, they were like, but we're going to jump in with you, Mom.
They jumped in with you?
Yep.
So is everyone covered in clam chowder?
No. They're off on the side. They're fine.
The side. Where did the clam chowder come from?
Probably you.
Oh,
Some other form of stress decided to pour clam chowder on me. And it was week old now, so imagine the smell.
So I'm clam chowder stress.
Yeah. And then I was rolled onto a spaceship. I don't know who did that. One of my other adult responsibilities put me on a spaceship. I went into orbit with all my stress and responsibilities, and now I'm on a struggle spaceship. So...
I just want you to know I take personal offense of being clam chowder stress.
We'll stop being clam chowder stress, and then you won't have to take offense. Hello. What was I saying? I was on the struggle spaceship. Oh, you're going to see me in the video on that struggle spaceship because I undercooked the baked potatoes a little bit. So when I did the part where you're supposed to scoop out the potato, it didn't go so great because it was like, it probably could have benefited from another 5 or 10 minutes in the oven, but I think I was rushing that night and I wasn't really like any hoodles. They turned out fine, but the reason why I'm saying this time, now that they got to go into the tanning bed a second time, I feel like they've actually softened a little bit, so they're even tastier. Because they kind of went through, they're twice baked potatoes, but truly in this situation, they're like triple baked potatoes.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
They are triple baked.
I'm giving these ones a 9, John. I'm giving them maybe an 8.5. I would maybe give it an 8.5. I don't know what I could do to make them better, but I would go with an 8.5.
I'm not a huge French onion fan.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with a 7 for the French onion side, but the potato is like an 8.
So honestly, if you needed like an idea for leftovers for Thanksgiving, if you have extras of these twice baked potatoes and then you put some turkey right on top with like stuffing or something, then you're good to go. What was I gonna say? So this, oh yeah, with gravy, John. Turkey gravy over that. Oh yeah. Just do that on the day. Just do that on the day.
Day of, but on your plate, just do it right.
Just throw it all together. What I was gonna say is this called for Gruyere cheese. I have some comments on Gruyere cheese.
Ooh, she's got comments.
I do not like Swiss cheese. John does like Swiss cheese. I do not like Swiss cheese, and Gruyere is in the Swiss cheese family. So I used to be nervous about it, but to me, actually, Gruyere tastes a lot like Parmesan. So it's like almost like a little bit more mild of a Parmesan. Parmesan, I feel like, has that very strong and salty finish to it. Gruyere is like Parmesan's milder cousin. So if you're like me and you don't like that super tangy Swiss cheese vibe, still maybe try out the Gruyere. But if you're nervous, because Gruyere, I think it was like maybe $11 for the
expensive.
wedge. Well, it was a huge wedge though.
Oh.
I got like a lot out of that wedge. So if you're nervous about investing the money in Gruyere and you can't taste it ahead of time, you could just swap it out and do like a mozzarella or I would go like mild cheddar. I wouldn't do sharp cheddar. But I think the French onion with the Gruyere, it's a vibe. They were meant to be together. If you are adventurous, I would just create it exactly as is, because I think the French onion vibes with Gruyere is where it's at. But we're gonna get this feedback over to corporate and you're diving into the next recipe. This next side is a cheesy ranch broccoli casserole, and it was probably the easiest one to throw together of this entire lineup. I started by steaming the broccoli florets on the stove for about 3 to 4 minutes until they were just bright green and slightly tender, and I set those aside to cool slightly. In a large mixing bowl, I combined shredded cheddar, cottage cheese, sour cream, a little bit of mayonnaise, ranch dressing mix, eggs, and an all-purpose seasoning. I stirred all of this up until it was smooth and then folded in the broccoli. I transferred this entire mixture into a 9x13 greased baking dish and topped it with remaining cheddar. I covered it up with foil and baked it in a preheated oven at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes. Then I removed the foil and baked it for another 10 to 15 until the cheese was bubbly and golden. Once I let this cool completely, I covered it up with aluminum foil, and if you have plastic wrap, I would use that as well. And then I got it in the freezer. Once we were ready to reheat this from frozen, I simply stuck it in a preheated oven at 350 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes. Then I took off the foil and let it cook for another 20 until it was all golden and bubbly. Okay, friends, so here we have a ranch cheddar broccoli side. This one has some cottage cheese in it. I want to say sour cream, mayonnaise, stuff like that. It's like a creamy, ranchy deliciousness. I want to try and like get some of the stuff too, you know.
She wants all the stuff.
I want the stuff. What are your thoughts, John?
That's delicious.
So I feel like I say this like every video, but John does not love ranch. Like, it's not like his first choice. He likes like a chipotle ranch, but he doesn't generally like ranch. And I was a little nervous because I ended up going with an entire packet of ranch dressing, like the seasoning. You know those packets?
I don't feel like it's that ranchy.
It's not. So if you have somebody in your family that doesn't like love ranch, I still think it would be okay. It's just it's a very mild side, which I think is perfect for a side, because I don't think you want your side to be the star. I think you want the bird to be the star.
The bird.
The bird and probably the desserts. That's what you want to be the side.
Facts.
This is very mild, but very delicious. Like, I don't want the word mild to make it seem like this is not good. This is going to be on our Thanksgiving menu going forward, because we don't really like love green bean casserole. Like, if somebody has it at their house, I'll eat it. But it's just, I don't know, something about it I'm not that big of a fan.
Yeah, I like green beans.
I like green beans, and I love the crispy fried onion on the top. That's my favorite thing. But I think the problem is most people make it with like those cream of soups. And I don't really love those to begin with. So I think if I made like some type of a gravy or something with the green bean casserole, maybe then I would like it. Look at me talking myself into making things. So I think that if I did it like that, we would probably enjoy it. But if other people like a traditional green bean casserole, I don't want to share that recipe, because then it's like, you're probably not going to like it because you like what's already been on the menu for decades upon decades upon decades, because lots of people make that.
Well, we're here to shatter the decades of
green bean casseroles.
Green bean casserole.
But anyways, talking about the broccoli casserole, we got off on a tangent per usual. I think this is perfect. I think that it froze really well. It was so easy to throw together. It was literally just like steam the broccoli for a couple minutes, toss it all together, cover it with some cheese, pre-bake it. I also did not have to thaw it in any way, shape, or form. It went directly from the freezer into the oven, so it could not be more simple for a side that you don't even have to think about on Thanksgiving Day.
I would have, if you gave that to me, I would have never known it was frozen and not fresh.
Really? The only thing that I did notice is that there is a little bit of runoff on like water at the bottom. Like there's like a little bit probably from it like freezing and then going in the oven or something. Like there's a little runoff on water. But if you were to transfer this into a nicer casserole dish on the day of, nobody would be the wiser. And honestly, my family would not care, because if it tastes like that, a little water at the bottom of the pan isn't going to scare anybody off. I'm just saying.
Very true.
I would give that, I'm going an 8, because I mean, it's broccoli. It's not like it's something like...
I'm going 7.5.
7.5. Okay. So solid option for the side. For any of you others out there that are looking for something outside of green bean casserole, maybe you want to make green bean casserole, but you want a second vegetable side, this would be an awesome option. Another one that we love to make that is super simple is to just dump some baby carrots in a crock pot, like a smaller crock pot, and then pour some honey over it and some brown sugar, and just let those cook low and slow for several hours. You don't even have to think about it. We use one of those dip crock pots. If you have a big family coming, use a 4.5 quart crock pot, but that's one of our favorites. It wouldn't be worth your time me showing a video of that, because it's literally just 3 ingredients.
It's like caramel.
Oh, and butter.
Whoa, butter.
It's a 4 ingredient. I almost forgot the most important part. You do baby carrots, butter, honey, and a little bit of brown sugar. I have no idea the measurements. My ancestors just whispered to me and it goes in there, so that's that.
And we call it caramelized carrots.
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
No, you're thinking caramelized onions.
Oh.
Because my dad also makes those. I think he calls them honey glazed carrots, is what I think he calls those ones.
I don't think really.
He's been making them forever, and so we took it on when we make our own Thanksgivings at home now. And
like those to me
so
are like up there with your potatoes.
Wow.
Because it's so simple.
It is so simple.
It's so good.
And my dad makes it on the stove. So if you don't have a crock pot, you could easily do it on the stove. He just like picks a burner he doesn't care about, sets it in the back, and then doesn't think about it for a few hours.
True that.
But crock pot is even easier. That's one of my tips for Thanksgiving, is make use of your other appliances. If you have an Instant Pot, if you have crock pots, get them out, get them on the counter. Look up recipes that can go in the air fryer, the crock pot, and the Instant Pot, because your oven and your stove are probably going to be taken up by other dishes. So if you can try to strategically look at the different recipes you'll be making and assign them different appliances, it makes a huge difference when you're cooking. And
you can start even earlier so that you're not like under the gun.
Yeah, especially if it's going in a crock pot. Like crock pot could be something you do at 7 a.m. and then you can cook it on low or high and then just switch it down to keep warm when you're getting closer to people actually coming over. And it's usually set in the back of a counter. Or you could even, if you have like a garage or your living room, you could go set up the crock pot in a different room and then truly not think about it. There's our feedback on the broccoli and a couple extra tips for handling Thanksgiving. Now, before we dive into the last recipe, which is a dessert, I wanted to show you how I got all of these heated up just as you would need to on Thanksgiving Day. So 2 of the recipes, the Amish rolls and the dessert, maple pecan blondies, need to thaw at room temperature for a few hours before you cook them. So I got those out on the counter. I took the foil off the Amish rolls and covered them with a damp, warm towel to help the process along. The goal is just to get them to rise up a little bit again. If you need that to go even faster, you can put them in an oven that is powered off with just the light on, and that will allow the rising process to happen. This would also probably be about the time you're eating breakfast, so if you wanted to, you can just pop the breakfast strata into an oven preheated at 350 degrees. Once you're about an hour away from the big meal, you're going to toss the broccoli and baked potatoes into the oven, also at 350 degrees. Those both will cook covered with foil for about 30 to 35 minutes, and then take the foil off and let them cook for another 15 to 20 until they're heated all the way through and bubbly. Depending on how crowded the oven is, you may need a little bit more time, so just give yourself wiggle room as needed. For me, I was taste testing them all together, so in the clips you're going to see me cooking the strata, broccoli, and potatoes together. For the maple blondies, I heated those up in the air fryer for a couple minutes before serving at 350 degrees and then drizzled them with the icing. As you saw in the recipe for the Amish rolls, I had brushed them with some melted butter, baked them, then sprinkled with salt and more butter before serving with honey butter. The best part of those is they can sit out and wait for you to be ready to bake them, so it's nice not to have to time or coordinate them with the dishes that are more specific on timing. Last, but certainly not least, is our dessert recipe, Maple Pecan Blondies. These were truly just a dump and mix style recipe, which I absolutely love. First, I preheated the oven to 350 degrees and lined a 7 by 11 inch baking pan with some parchment paper. You could also do an 8 by 8 if you wanted. In my stand mixer, I whisked together melted butter, brown sugar, and maple syrup until it was smooth, then added in the egg and vanilla extract until it was all incorporated. Next, one by one, I slowly incorporated the flour, baking powder, and salt, and then lastly folded in the pecans. This batter went into the prepared baking pan evenly spread out, and I baked it for 20 to 25 minutes until the edges were golden and a knife inserted into the center had come out clean. And then you just want to let those cool completely. If you are eating them right now, you can also whip together a simple glaze by combining a little bit of powdered sugar and maple syrup and then drizzling it over it. If you're going to go directly to freezing it, you can either just cover your baking pan tightly with foil and plastic wrap, or if you want to do it like I did, I cut the blondies into squares and then wrapped each piece individually in foil and stuck them in a freezer-safe bag. The reason why I did that was because I knew that John and I would just eat those a couple at a time, so I didn't want to freeze the entire thing to have to thaw all at once. When you're ready to enjoy this, all you have to do is let it thaw at room temperature for a couple hours, and then you can heat them up in the air fryer or microwave. If you're doing air fryer, I did 350 degrees for 3 minutes. The microwave, you could probably get away with like 30 to 45 seconds. And then when you're ready to serve it, you can just drizzle it with some of that maple glaze. Friends, the final recipe in this video, and potentially my favorite one.
Really?
Because it's dessert, hello.
Hello.
We have these maple pecan blondies with a maple glaze. I'm here for anything maple in the fall. Like, I don't need the pumpkin, I need maple.
That's very dense.
Is that the word?
Dense.
I think so.
Heavy.
It's very like brownie.
Yes.
Like, it's a blondie for sure.
Yes.
Here's the thing, we got to taste test this fresh the night that I made them because there was no way.
I did not.
You didn't try it that night? There was no way I wasn't trying it that night. So I tried it that night, and then I froze the remaining ones or whatever. There is no difference after freezing it in that recipe. Absolutely delicious. I think that it's something that will be a surprise. It'll give a fresh twist to your Thanksgiving dessert lineup because you know somebody's bringing a pumpkin pie. Auntie Barbara probably makes a delicious pumpkin pie, brings it every year, and you're gonna have something that can stand up to that delicious pumpkin pie in this maple pecan blondie dish. I'm giving them a 9.5. The only improvement for me would be if I had like a salted caramel sauce to go on top. That would bring it up to a 10, but I'm giving it a 9.5.
I'm going 9.
Going 9, which is a solid score because John doesn't usually like nuts in his baked goods. I also used to not be the type that liked walnuts in cookies and things like that, but we've recently been finding that we're getting mature now.
We're getting real mature.
We're really world class. We are civilized and we now enjoy nuts in our baked goods. So this was delicious. I think it was the perfect amount of pecan stew. Don't do more.
Yeah.
I think it was just enough to give it like a little bit of crunch without taking away from the blondie itself. We're gonna get this feedback over to corporate. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this video was helpful. I hope we delivered whatever you needed when you clicked on that thumbnail, and I hope you have a magical day. Bye.